Hey there, folks. This is Ryan from ORS Snowshoes Direct here in Vermont, here in our warehouse. It's a warehouse, folks. We're not going to lie to you. The ambiance might not be ideal for this snowshoe video, so I've helped by adding my little plant here. This is my plant, Robert plant. Okay, but let's talk about snowshoes. That's why you're watching me right now. We're going to go through our Xpedition sort of backcountry category right now. These are the snowshoes in our most extreme category. What does that mean? That means that you are really pushing the limits. You're going up steep mountains, you're in deep snow, you're going down steep descents. You need traction, you need bindings that are supportive, and you need the proper flotation for that deep snow, or the proper frame to handle that icy hardpack stuff you might encounter on the top of a windswept crevasse, or the bottom of a windswept crevasse, if there's such a thing. Anyway, the idea is, you're looking for really a shoe that can handle anything you throw at it, and or anywhere you point it, it's going to take you. Now, that doesn't mean you can't benefit from some of the features that you find on these snowshoes. If you're more of a recreational snowshoer, having a really supportive binding and plenty of traction and a really aggressive, or I should say sturdy frame, it's not going to be a problem at all. Alright, so let's move through the line quickly. I'm just going to give you a general overview. Of course, there's a lot more information regarding each of these shoes on the product page for the specific shoe. So if you want more information, just go there and you will find it. But I'm just going to kind of give you a breakdown to kind of help you sort of figure out the differences between the brands and their models. And we're going to start with Tubbs. Tubbs used to be made right here in Vermont down the road in Stowe. Unfortunately, they are no longer made in Stowe, but we still carry their shoes. It's a brand I'm sure you recognize. And we're going to start off with the Flex ALP. This is a really brand new shoe from Tubbs, came out last year. And the frame is molded, it's very flexible. And here's a shoe that has tons of traction. I mean, we're talking you could walk straight up a frozen iced waterfall with this thing. But because it's a molded shoe and can flex, it will be a very, very comfortable shoe to use on hard pack surfaces. So this is kind of a shoe designed for more either icy, windswept surfaces or hard pack. It's available in just one size. And the reason being is because, flotation isn't really an issue. You're not really in deep snow. Now, this size could certainly work for your weight. It's about, 23 inches, 24 inches, somewhere in there. But the point is, it's really more for packed surfaces, but it gives you amazing, amazing traction, and the frame flexes, so it's going to be really comfortable. When you take a step, the heel will flex, so you don't get that sort of heel strike that you might with a rigid frame on a hard packed surface. Otherwise, as I mentioned, tons of traction and a great, great binding with a heel elevator or a climbing bar. You're going to see this type of feature on all of the shoes in this category. And what this thing does is it gives you sort of a heel resting place when you're going uphill for an extended period of time. It's not something you want to flip up and flip down every time a hill comes along, but if you're on a straight uphill for an extended period of time, you lift that up, your heel has a place to land, it's going to put some pressure on the back of the shoe for better traction, and it's going to reduce fatigue on your poor calves as you go up that mountain. Now, quickly, the binding, again, is a flexible binding, great for packed surfaces, ideally. And this is their reactive or active flex binding, I should say. Real simple to use. You put your foot in, you pull the straps on each side, and it's going to cinch down on your foot. And then you've got a heel adjustment strap as well, and you're done. Control wings are there, as you'll find on pretty much all the Tubbs snowshoes. And if you go to the next Tubbs model, you'll see a very, very similar binding. And also, on the other Tubbs model, a very similar binding. So, Flex ALP is over here, kind of in its own category, the Flex category. Now, let's move to these two shoes, more in a traditional frame. An aluminum frame with decking material. We've got the Mountaineer. This is the women's Mountaineer. This is the order it should be in, if we're going sort of highest to down the line. And this is the Xpedition, and aluminum frame with decking material as well. Now, the difference between these two shoes, the Mountaineer is your full-on, most aggressive crampon, so your steepest, deepest terrain. Compare that to the crampons on the Xpedition. It's a different look. They're not quite as deep. There's still plenty of traction there. You can pretty much go anywhere. This has just that extra bit of look at those things. Those will dig deep into deep snow. You won't slip. Aluminum frame, as I mentioned, and a very, kind of a similar binding to what you saw on the Flex model here. This is called the active fit binding, and it works in a very similar way. You pull these straps, it'll cinch down on your foot. You got a heel adjustment there as well. Control wings, so lots of lateral support for, off-camber type stuff, and a heel lift. Both of these have the heel lift. The reactive binding on the Xpedition isn't quite as supportive. There's not as much padding, so it's a little more basic. Still works in the same way. So, you can see the difference there in the binding. A nice sort of padded, more comfortable binding with sort of a more, basic binding that's still going to give you plenty of support and hold your foot in place. The other thing these two shoes have in common is what's called the R2 reactive, or R2 reactive response binding suspension system. So this is a rotating toe cord, meaning that the binding pivots freely of the shoe. When you take a step, snow is going to fall off the back. And they've added these bands here that allows the binding to also flex laterally. So you can get really good side-to-side articulation if you're traversing a side hill. Your ankle won't be so, tweaked. And you'll see that on both of these shoes. So all three of the Tubbs models here are really for really aggressive terrain. These two are available in men's and women's, and as well as multiple sizes. The Flex ALP is also available in women's, but only in one size. And again, more for packed snow. And here you go for deeper snow. How do you determine your proper size? Look at the weight chart, consider how much weight you're going to be carrying, and then base your size based on that. I'm about 195, probably fall in the range of about a 30-inch. So here we have a 25, I'd probably want to go a little bit bigger. And a women's 21 has a weight range as well. Consider a larger frame means you're going to get better flotation in deep snow. A smaller frame means you're going to have an easier time to walk around. And again, that's why these models are sort of smaller, because you don't need the big frame for that extra flotation. And that whole spiel applies to pretty much the whole line of snowshoes, so I won't repeat that again. Okay, now we're going to move into Atlas. Atlas snowshoes are great. They have a slightly different, philosophy of bindings mainly, and how they are attached to the shoe. We have the 1230 here, and this is part of the 12 series, available in men's. The 1230, this is the men's 1230. The Elektra is the women's version. Mainly the difference between men's and women's snowshoes. The frames are a little bit different. Generally, the women's shoes have a more tapered tail and maybe a binding that will accommodate a smaller boot. Otherwise, all the features are the same, and the graphic, of course, will be a little bit different. 1230 for men. Again, it's about my size. Stainless steel, lots and lots of traction on both of these shoes. But you'll notice a big difference between the frame and decking and traction. We'll talk about this in just a minute. Let's focus now on the 12 series. Nice aluminum frame, and Atlas really does it with their bindings. This is called the reactive binding, and I am a big fan of this binding. Your foot goes in, got a nice pad inside of there. You pull on this loop. These straps will not freeze up. They slide nice and smoothly through the buckles. Really, really snugs tight on your boot. You've got a heel adjustment as well. You get a really, really good fit. It's got a heel lift as well. Plenty of traction. Again, got to point that out. Now, here's the big thing about Atlas and Tubbs. Tubbs uses the rotating toe cord. So the binding swivels on this sort of metal pin, whereas Atlas uses a spring-loaded toe cord, they call it. The binding is floating on these bands, and you get extraordinary articulation. I mean, your foot can pretty much go wherever it needs to go to get a good solid step or hold on the snow, while the frame can do its own thing. They really believe in that. So not being a rotating toe cord, the tail might flip just a little bit, but otherwise, you understand that, you're getting the benefit of that really, really good articulation. And when you're in the really extreme terrain, off, double fall line type of stuff, that can really come in handy. So that's Atlas's really aggressive terrain 12 series snowshoe. Here we have the Aspect. This is a new shoe, and now what they're trying to do is accommodate people who are going up maybe to go down on something other than their snowshoes, like a snowboarder or something like that. So they have this binding called the reactive flat binding, or the pack flat binding. So when you're done using it, you can pull these straps out, nest the two shoes together, and they're going to pack really, really flat. So when you strap it to the back of your pack, it won't be really bulky. This shoe is all about traction. The frame is also a cramp-on. And so the idea is, aggressive traction. And Otherwise, you've got that nice spring-loaded binding as well. And a pretty basic binding, but this is going to work just fine. It'll fit on a snowboard boot, it'll fit on a mountaineering boot, and then when you're done, you take it off, you strap it to the back of your pack, and you float down the hill on whatever tool you're on. Climbing bar, of course. And this shoe is available in 2 sizes. It's sort of a unisex. Back to the 12 series, available, as I mentioned, in women's and in men's. But this is really 2 sizes. You base it on your weight, and you rip and go. That's the Atlas Aspect. Very specific kind of a shoe, kind of a niche-y shoe. Now let's move to MSR. MSR, I am a huge fan of MSR. I'm a fan of all the shoes we carry, but MSR are made right here in the US. Very, very high quality. 2 totally different shoes here. Let's start out with the Evo Ascent. Plastic molded shoe. They really pioneered this category, and it became so popular that the big boys at Tubbs, they designed their own molded shoe. We talked about that earlier in this video, called the Flex. But they were the first to really, really go after this, where, you know, it's a plastic snowshoe, but it's really, really durable. It can flex to accommodate the varying terrain, and lots of traction there. Traction rails running the full length of the shoe with a nice aggressive toe cramp on. It's a rotating toe cord. Starting to understand how that works, right? Snow sheds off the back. And MSR, they call it the Posi Lock AT binding. You know, it doesn't look as fancy as maybe the Atlas or the Tubbs bindings, but believe me, this thing is a great binding. Simply just straps that run over the top of your boot. These nice and flexible. You run them through these rings. You tighten it up in 3 spots. It really, really gives a nice secure hold. It'll accommodate pretty much any size boot, and you've got a heel strap as well. Really, really nice binding. I love it. And a heel lift, and the ability to add a flotation tail. So this shoe is available in 1 size. It's a unisex shoe, and if you feel, you look at the weight chart and you think, you know, I need a longer shoe for when it's really deep snow, then you can add the flotation tail. This adds 6 inches of length to the shoe. It really helps to spread your weight out. It'll give you better flotation. Now, it's a longer shoe, and you don't always want that extra length when you're on packed snow, so then you can take it off and you got a shoe that's easier to walk in. Mainly you're looking at a nice, good, stable platform to walk in the less than deep snow with plenty of traction. So it's a modular shoe, and that's a really unique feature that I think is very, very cool. Moving into the Lightning Ascent, you're going to see a lot of the same features. Heel elevator, the same Posi Lock binding, rotating toe cord, but now we've got a totally different type of deal here. And this is the Lightning, which MSR did such a good job designing. This might look a lot familiar to you from an earlier shoe, the Aspect from Atlas. Well, Atlas thought it was a pretty impressive design, and they kind of tried to, you know, recreate it. But MSR really did it first, where the frame itself is traction. It's super, super light by doing that, and durable. It can flex as well. Mainly, you know, the idea is maximum flotation, really, really lightweight, available in men's and women's in multiple sizes. And of course, as with the Evo Ascent, you can add a modular flotation tail to improve your traction on, you know, when the really deep snow comes along. It's a pretty simple attachment process, actually. That hinges over, and then this thing comes up and over the top. Adds the extra length you need for that really deep snow. So these are available in different sizes, unlike the Evo Ascent. So you pick the size you need, and then you add flotation tail for the really, really deep snow to give you maximum flotation. So it's always tough to cram in all this information in 10 minutes, but I think I did a sort of good job. Thank you, Robert, for being my trusty companion. Again, lots more information on the individual product page for each shoe. So thanks for checking in, folks. I am Ryan from ORS Snowshoes Direct.